The Dumb Waiter is one of Harold Pinter's most acclaimed one-act plays. Like much of his early work, it is deeply influenced by the theater of the absurd and existentialist philosophy, as well as the menace characteristic of Pinter's early comedies of menace. The play explores the oppressive nature of bureaucratic systems, the erosion of individuality under authority, and the fragility of human relationships. Set entirely in a windowless basement room, the action follows two professional hitmen, Ben and Gus, as they wait for instructions for their next job. Over the course of the play, their seemingly mundane conversations become increasingly strained and fragmented, culminating in a shocking and ambiguous ending that forces the audience to confront questions about loyalty, complicity, and institutional control. Setting and atmosphere. The play takes place in a dingy, basement room with two beds, a kitchen area, and a dumb waiter, a small service elevator used in restaurants to transport food between floors. The setting is claustrophobic, bare, and oppressive. The room has no windows and minimal furnishings, heightening the sense of isolation and surveillance. Characters. Ben, the senior hitman. He is stern, composed, and ritualistic. He reads the newspaper, drinks tea, and adheres strictly to routines and the expectations of the organization. Gus, the younger, more anxious and curious partner. He fidgets, asks questions, and seems increasingly uneasy about their job and its moral implications. Opening. Routine and discomfort. As the play opens, Ben sits on his bed reading the newspaper, while Gus moves about nervously, trying to get his shoe on. Their interaction is marked by mundane conversation filled with non-sequiturs and banalities about tea, matches, the newspaper, and the lavatory. Gus asks questions that Ben avoids or brushes off. Their dialogue is circular, and pauses stretch awkwardly. Early tension simmers under the surface, especially when Gus begins to question the details and purpose of their assignment, an act that unsettles Ben. Disruptions. Mysterious orders. Suddenly, the dumb waiter comes to life, descending into the room with an unexpected food order. This is perplexing. Ben and Gus are not in a restaurant, and no one has ever used the dumb waiter before. Attached to the food order is a written slip requesting a variety of elaborate dishes. The requests continue to arrive, demanding increasingly absurd and sophisticated meals like scampi and macaroni pasticcio. Ben tries to appease the system by sending up their meager food supplies, a biscuit, tea, and a sandwich, to fulfill the requests, even though no one answers their knocks or speaks to them. These mysterious demands exert a mechanical authority that neither man questions directly. The food orders and the dumb waiter become symbols of unseen authority, arbitrary, faceless, and total. Growing tension and revelation. Gus becomes increasingly unnerved by the situation. He questions who is upstairs and why they're sending food orders. His anxiety grows. He also begins questioning the morality of their jobs, especially after recent executions that seemed especially cold-blooded. Ben, meanwhile, clings to the protocol and tries to maintain discipline. But even he is unsettled when the dumb waiter starts demanding things they cannot provide, and speaking tubes in the wall deliver brief, imperious commands with no explanation. Eventually, Ben receives instructions, presumably from their boss, to prepare for the imminent execution. He prepares his gun, takes his position, and waits. Climax and final shock. At the climax, Ben expects a new victim to enter. Instead, Gus re-enters the room, without his gun, confused, disarmed, and vulnerable. The moment is chilling. Ben realizes that Gus is the target. The play ends with Ben pointing the gun at Gus, though no shot is fired on stage. The lights fade, and silence envelops the room. This final tableau leaves the audience in stunned ambiguity. Will Ben follow orders? Will he execute his friend? Has he known all along? Analysis of themes. 1. Authority and obedience. The central dynamic of the dumb waiter is the relationship between individuals and the unseen powers they serve. The play portrays Ben and Gus as cogs in a machine, a larger, faceless organization that controls them through ritual, routine, and intimidation. The dumb waiter and the speaking tube symbolize anonymous authority. Commands arrive from above, literally and metaphorically, and the characters comply without fully understanding why. Ben represents obedience. He accepts the chain of command, even when it turns against his partner. Gus, however, begins to question the morality and logic of their actions, and in doing so, becomes a threat to the system. The play thus becomes a critique of totalitarianism, institutional violence, and blind loyalty. It dramatizes the psychological toll of being part of a system where one must obey, even when the orders are absurd or immoral. 2. Power dynamics and surveillance. The relationship between Ben and Gus is marked by hierarchical tension. Ben, older and more experienced, dominates the dialogue, reads the newspaper, and corrects Gus's behavior. Gus is deferential but increasingly questioning. As the play unfolds, their roles begin to shift. Gus becomes more assertive in questioning their orders, while Ben becomes more desperate to maintain control. The dumb waiter reinforces the theme of surveillance. Someone unseen is monitoring them, controlling their movements and testing their obedience. The characters are trapped in a panopticon-like system, where even the absurd becomes mandatory. 3. Existential anxiety and absurdity. The dumb waiter resonates with the themes of existentialism and the absurd, evoking the influence of Beckett's Waiting for Godot. Like Beckett's characters, Ben and Gus are isolated in a meaningless setting, engaged in repetitive, circular dialogue, waiting for instructions or salvation that never comes. Their waiting becomes a metaphor for existence itself, a state of uncertainty, fear, and purposelessness. Gus's increasing anxiety mirrors existential questioning. Why are we here? Who is in control? What is the purpose of our actions? Pinter emphasizes how language and ritual become tools to fend off existential dread, but ultimately fail when confronted with the truth of mortality and absurdity. 4. Violence and dehumanization. Violence is central to the character's profession, but it is also ritualized and depersonalized. They kill not out of passion, but as an occupation, executing faceless targets under faceless orders. The dumb waiter's mechanical voice strips communication of empathy or rationale. Gus becomes a victim not of personal betrayal, but of a system that turns people into objects, both the killers and the killed. Pinter critiques how bureaucratic systems enable violence without responsibility. No one asks why. No one knows the victims. No one resists. 5. Friendship and betrayal. At the play's core is the relationship between Ben and Gus, and the final moments cast it in tragic relief. While their relationship is strained and uneven, there is also familiarity, banter, and a sense of shared history. Ben's likely participation in Gus's execution represents the ultimate betrayal, a sacrifice of human connection to institutional loyalty. The unresolved ending leaves the audience grappling with disturbing questions. Will Ben obey the order to kill his friend? Is friendship meaningful in a world ruled by impersonal systems? Is morality possible in a structure that demands submission? Symbolism in the play. The dumb waiter. The dumb waiter is the play's most potent symbol. It represents unseen authority. Commands come from above, with no explanation. Absurd bureaucracy. It sends irrelevant, impossible orders. Surveillance. It reinforces the sense that the characters are being watched and tested. As the dumb waiter gains power in the play, Ben and Gus become increasingly powerless. It symbolizes the impersonal nature of modern institutions, where human beings are subordinated to arbitrary demands. The speaking tube. The speaking tube is another vehicle for anonymous commands, symbolizing the faceless voice of power. It is loud, sudden, and imperious. It gives orders without explanation, reinforcing the oppressive dynamic of the play. Food orders. The bizarre food orders, scampi, pasticcio, etc., are impossible for the characters to fulfill. These surreal requests are tests of obedience, parodies of consumer culture, tools for asserting control. They expose the irrationality of bureaucracy, demanding the impossible, punishing failure, and using submission as the measure of loyalty. Guns and shoes. Guns. Instruments of authority and death. Their presence is a constant reminder of violence as routine. Shoes. Gus's difficulty with his shoes may symbolize his discomfort within his role, his growing misfit with the structure he serves. Pinteresque dialogue and dramatic style. Pinter's language is famously sparse, elliptical, and full of pauses, silences, repetition, non sequiturs. This style creates tension, builds unease, and mirrors the breakdown of communication in the modern world. In The Dumb Waiter, Pinter uses banal conversations about tea, football, and matches to delay and mask the horror of what's coming. The contrast between mundane speech and the looming violence creates psychological dissonance. Pinter's mastery lies in his ability to make silences more threatening than speech, and inane talk more revealing than confession. Critical reception and legacy. The Dumb Waiter has been celebrated as a concise and powerful distillation of Pinter's themes. Critics have praised its taut structure, psychological complexity, political allegory, moral ambiguity. It has been interpreted as an allegory of totalitarianism, a critique of state violence, a meditation on existential dread, a parody of workplace or military obedience. It is often staged alongside other one-act plays, The Room, The Collection, and is studied as a cornerstone of Pinter's comedy of menace, dramas where humor and horror coexist uneasily. Conclusion. Harold Pinter's The Dumb Waiter is a compact, unsettling, and darkly humorous play that explores the absurdity of obedience, the depersonalization of violence, and the fragility of human connection in the face of impersonal authority. Through the characters of Ben and Gus, two hitmen trapped in a cycle of command, compliance, and betrayal, Pinter lays bare the existential dilemmas of the modern individual. The need for meaning in a meaningless system, the terror of being watched, and the betrayal inherent in survival. Like The Dumb Waiter itself, the play delivers its messages in silence, absurdity, and command, leaving us to grapple with the chilling implications of what it means to serve without knowing why.